Welcome everybody to this workshop, which is Feminine Cycles and Flow with Jane Dancy. Jane is a women's coach and a yoga teacher. She specializes supporting and accompanying women through transitional stages in life, and she is the creator of the Embodied Female Pelvis online course. But she coaches women both online and in person. But today she's here with this workshop, and the audience is mixed. Some people are Embodied Toolkit, in which it's a bonus session, but there's also other people attending the workshop. And should you wish to purchase the workshop and the recordings that go with it, then there is a link to buy that. And there is an early bird at the moment. If you're on Embodied Toolkit, it's part of your course anyway. During this session, it would be great if you have your cameras on so Jane can see you. If you have any technical issues, Ella Stren is here. She's an assistant. If you could wave, that would be great. Oh, wave. And I think she's frozen actually. Or message me directly and we'll do our best to help you out. And for now, I'm going to hand straight over to you, Jane. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Helen. Hello, everyone. It's really, really good to see you. So here we are I'm in the UK, I'm in Sussex, and it's just gone 5 o'clock here. So sort of going into early evening. It might not be with you. So to start with, it would be really lovely if you wanted to put in the chat where you are zooming in from, so we can get an idea of the sort of the constellation, worldwide constellation that we might be creating in this hour and a half together. Spain, California, Albans, London. I'm just going to put the chat up. So Greece, Netherlands, Germany. Great. Really, really good to see where you all are. And I know Helen's already said it, but I would love to see your faces. I'd love to see your bodies moving through this session. We are here for embodiment. Of course, it's always an invitation, but it is really, really great to actually see you all. And I think there was a question of if this was female only, and it's definitely not female only. So everyone is really so very, very welcome, whatever sex or gender they are or identify as. And I will be speaking to a female perspective, and that does come from a biological female perspective of hormones and nervous system. And some of it might resonate with you and some of it might not, and take it with a pinch of salt, see what lands with you. And I'm going to invite you to stay in a mode of curiosity and just see where you go with it. So embodiment and the feminine cycles of life. So what I will actually say before we get going, if you've got some paper or a journal and a pen, if you're into that kind of thing, have a moment to grab something, because I'm going to give you time to sort of have some process time, and if you want to make notes. So I've been teaching yoga for coming up to 20 years, and I started studying with Mark back in 2015, and at the same time I started studying psychotherapy, and it was my also start of working with well, not working but studying around women's work and female perspective. And that has completely changed the way that I practice and the way that I work. And it's a very ongoing, it's a process in myself. So the more that I practice and I start to learn, and I kind of bring other elements in. So I'm looking a lot more at the female nervous system, for example, and how that interplays with all of this. One of the things that I did a while ago, quite a few years ago, is I went to the Red School menopause weekend workshop, and the Red School create this beautiful chambers of the menopause and also of menstruation, which I've really learned a lot from. But it was very it wasn't embodied. There was no movement. It was a very static thing, and so I've kind of taken that and brought movement into it, and then brought lots of different layers to it. And I bet when you go through this, you will probably bring other layers to it as well. You might think, oh yeah, and that connects to this or that, and that's the beauty of it. So this work, I see it as like we're weaving an immense web basket of all these different things. And this is really important, because so much around the female perspective and the female the biological aspect of being a woman has not been explored very much. There's a huge medical bias. There's not that much research that's done. So these are this is new. We're going into new waters, and there is starting to be a lot more research, thankfully. So what we will be doing is exploring different aspects of the menstrual cycle, stages of life, archetypes, hormones, nervous system, and some other things if I start to think of them at that time. And because I've realized that as a female, as a woman, and as all women, females, we will be doing things slightly different to our male counterparts. Generalizing. But generally, we are wired differently, and we are cyclical beings. We are born with the inner seasons within us, and that carries on throughout our life. So it might be, you might be thinking, oh, menstrual cycle, that's not relevant to me. And for a lot of you, it might not be relevant, or you might not be interested. The reality is that even if you don't have a menstrual cycle, if you're on contraceptives or for whatever reason, or you are menopause, postmenopause, the fact that we have the ability to cycle plays out wherever we are in our life. And what goes along with that is the hormones, which really are the fabric of our life, sending all those signals and interweaving with the nervous system. And one of my intentions with bringing this to embodiment, which a lot of the lineages of embodiment are quite male dominated, and quite come from quite a linear approach. Same with yoga. My intention is to bring some awareness to a non-linear, more cyclical, spiral way of being, and remembering that we were never meant to be the same all the time. We're constantly ebbing and flowing, and that's okay. And especially if we're in puberty or perimenopause, even more so. So for that, we'll be going through the 4 seasons. But in actual fact, my experience of perimenopause is that I might experience the 4 seasons all in one day. And that will make more sense as we go through it. So let me tell you what we will be doing. We're going to do a little settling practice, bringing in the 4 seasons, just to see where you might feel that you are. And then the main bulk of the practice with Embodied Toolkit poses, and time to process, and then some Q&A at the end. So I'm going to invite you to, well, we are going to settle now. So find a comfortable place to settle. What might that be? And it might be that you're seated, you might be on the ground, cross-legged, you don't have to be, could be in a chair. Letting your feet rest on the ground, letting your bum settle, your pelvis. Perhaps checking in that there is a softness in the belly, or maybe inviting some softness into the belly. Loosening the tongue. And you can either close your eyes or let your gaze drop down. And bringing your attention to your physical body. Bringing a type of awareness that is curious. Noticing what's going on physically for you right now. And perhaps extending that to your emotional realms. Your breathing body. And we're going to explore that through the lens of the 4 seasons. So if I was feeling wintry right now, I would be in a very internal space, quiet, not wanting to, actually it might be quite difficult. If I was very wintry, it might be that I would want to keep my camera off. And it might be that I could be completely exhausted. And then moving from winter into spring, in spring mode, there is a bubbly curiosity coming out, a excitement, like, oh, what are we going to do? Fizziness. The start of new beginnings rippling through you. Actually wanting to get up and out and explore things. And then from spring going into summer, the height of activity, the height of energy. And it might be, if you were summery right now, it might be like, you might be thinking, come on, Jane, get on with it. I want to get into the practice. I want to get into the meat of it. Very happy to have your camera on and being out there. And then coming round to autumn. That feeling of wanting to turn inward, of being out there, there's a little bit of a tension. Not wanting to be asked to do much. Wanting one's own space. Feeling inclined to start to close the curtains. So the 4 seasons. So then once again, finding your physical body, your feet, your pelvis, your belly, and starting to open up your eyes and coming out of this settling practice. Maybe having a look around your room, locating yourself back in your space. You might want to yawn or stretch. And just for a moment, consider, where do you think you were in those 4 seasons? And it might be really apparent, and it might not be. It might be, I'm not too sure. And that's okay, because we're exploring. So Barbara's in all 4 seasons at the moment. Yeah. So remembering that this is a map, not the terrain. It doesn't have to be perfect. We don't have to be right. And we can change our mind. So if you want to put in the chat where you find yourself. It's a really good way for me to see where you're all at. So there's some spring and winter. And what I love about checking in with the 4 seasons is that it goes across everything. So it's not about checking in with my menstrual cycle. It's not checking in with my anything in particular, my emotions. It's to a season, which of course in the northern hemisphere we're more connected to. But I'm guessing that those in the southern hemisphere can get a gist of what I'm meaning. Okay. So now we're going to practice with our bodies these 4 seasons. And I always like to start in winter. So we'll be doing a full circle, going around the whole circle of the seasons. So with that, I'm going to invite you to come onto the ground. So this is an invitation. So if going on the ground is not available, or you don't want to, too uncomfortable, you can do it seated. On the ground, you'd be lying on your back with your knees bent in the toolkit pose of rest. Yeah, so a classic lying on your back, knees bent. If you are doing it from seated, just allowing the ground to support your feet and really sensing into the support of the chair. If you can get on the ground, it's really useful. And if you can't, that's okay as well. So the beauty about these poses is that they're very adaptable. So coming into rest pose. So rest pose we use as a way to, guess what? Explore rest. What's my relationship to rest like? So for a moment, as you come into this place, whether you are seated or whether you're on the ground, notice how that is, how you come into it. Is there a collapse? Boom. Is there a resisting? Is there a, oh yeah. So we're journeying through the season of winter. And in the menstrual cycle, that would be days 1 to about 5, and it's the time of the bleed. The archetype is the crone. And it connects to that moment of realization that one is at the point of menopause. A time of hibernation, of coming inward, taking stock of oneself. And in our female bodies, we will have a different relationship to this. Considering all of those things that might pull you out of rest. And if anyone ever says, oh, just rest, you can tell them to sling their hook, because there is nothing as just resting. To come into a restful place can be a real journey. It's not always that easy. And if we think about, if I bring in what might be going on in the female nervous system, ideally we're in the parasympathetic of rest and digest. that would be a well-regulated nervous system. The reality is that I don't know what percentage of the world would be dysregulated, but it's like the whole world sometimes seems dysregulated, one big dysregulated nervous system. So if we are regulated and we've done self-care and all of that, it will be rest and digest. If our nervous system is not regulated, it could be going into collapse. And as I say that, notice how that is for you. Does that feel familiar? That's like going into bed at nighttime, going to sleep and just collapsing into sleep. Run, 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 collapse. The other way that it could be is it could be in freeze. Like, you know, the classic thing of going to a yoga class, being put into a relaxation and lying there like, God, I hope this finishes really soon. Each individual has a process to go through to get into rest, depending on what's going on in our body, where we are in our life cycle. What's going on in our nervous system? How's our week been? I spend a lot of time thinking about this because rest has not been easy for me. From being a single mum for over 10 years, I came into perimenopause in a very hypervigilant place. So it's been a real exploration. And as I've explored this, I've realized that it can be a complicated thing for many. And the beauty is that we can explore with curiosity of how do I get my body into a place where it's comfortable to rest? And this is the groundwork. This is how we set the foundations for ourselves to have a content and easeful life. When we get stuck in that busy mode and we don't allow ourselves, or it's just really not apparent to actually stop and rest in winter, then that can create the symptoms of whether it's perimenopause or what have you, but symptoms such as anxiety, depression, feeling out of control. So giving yourself a moment to be here in this winter of rest. And notice what it's like now. We've been here for a few minutes. Has something shifted? And that's not always, it's not to say that it's always going to be a positive shift. It might be that you feel more uncomfortable. I'm going to give you a few moments, if you feel like it, if you want to write anything down. It could be that you like writing, or you draw a picture, or you carry on staying here for a few more moments. And it might be that some of you are thinking, oh, I wish we could stay here forever. And some of you might be thinking, God, get on with it. And that's okay. How are you with being in the void? And that's very much how it is when we go through the bleed part of the menstrual cycle. And also it can be, there's a version of that in menopause, of this void of like, I'm not one thing or the other, or what am I? Who am I? How can we get comfortable being in that void? That time that's so essential for inner reflection, cultivating that wisdom so we can become wise women, so we can really find our rhythm that works for us. And having a moment thinking, what does winter symbolize for you? There was a book that came out a year or 2 years ago, Wintering, which is very successful. Lovely book. All about that phase of slowing down. And it can also be, we can connect this to any kind of time that we go through illness or recovery or a cycle of grief as well. And then starting to bring that to a close. Starting to come out of the hibernation of winter. Being curious about how you transition from one to another. There's so much useful information of how we move from one place to another. When we pay attention to those little bits in between, that's when we can really create self-care practices. Like, how do I transition from one to the other? Do I give myself time to process that? Because we're starting to come into spring. So wherever you are, it's starting to bring a little bit of movement. Now, some of you might have already jumped into summer. Get back into spring. Just really small, gentle, fluttering movement. Like those tendrils of green starting to come up through the earth at springtime. And it's a tender time. The flutterings of new beginnings. Perhaps bringing a little bit more awareness to your inhale. Noticing that gentle expansion that comes. So that's riding the waves of spring through the breath, enlivening. And however you might want to express this, you're very welcome to go with what feels right for you. So starting to move through from the center of your body through your arms, your legs. You don't need to rush. What happens if we rush spring? It's like those plants that come out too early and the frost gets them. They still need a little bit of protecting. And we're going to come up to standing if you would like to. You can do it from the chair if you would rather stay seated for whatever reasons, but if you can come up to standing, we're going to come up into an embodied toolkit pose of inspiration. So one foot is forward from the other, one step, feet about a yoga mat width. And I'll show you what I do with the legs, because this is, so the weight is put onto the back leg and the arms come up. And you're looking up in awe of what is around you. Because you just journeyed from winter and suddenly the light has started to come in. It's like the first rays of sunshine that feel warm on your skin as you come out of winter. Inspiration. Allowing that inspiration to come to you. And you don't have to stay static in this. You could look around your room in this way and looking through fresh eyes. So much of the time when we are busy, we don't see things fully, like the eyes of a child or the eyes of someone who's never been somewhere before. Wow. So looking around with this spring-like, looking at the objects in your room, notice where your attention goes. So much of the time, this gets bypassed. And there is a sensation to inspirational awe. So if you've got a window that you can look out, like I'm looking out to trees, if I just stay here and allow that to drop in a way that perhaps normally I wouldn't ever connect to. So you can stay standing and moving around your room, looking and connecting. So don't look at me. Look around and explore, and that could be things. It could be textures. Ooh, carpet. What's your hair feel like? And we're going to add a little bit of playfulness. So spring energy. Oh, yeah. So there's a playfulness to spring energy. So Embodied Toolkit, posture of the Joker. Yeah. So bring your weight onto one leg and the other leg goes up, and bring your arms out and go. Playfulness, the Joker. Ooh. And you can make silly noises. What I quite like to do is really, really ridiculous yoga poses. Or it could be that you do a ballet pose, like a crazy person. Ooh. So coming into playfulness is light and expansive. So again, moving through your room, doing whatever you would like, making sounds. And as you do this, just like it was with rest and winter, notice, what's this like? Does it come easy? Some of you might find it really very easy to tap into that playful energy. And others of you might be thinking, oh my God, I can't stand this. And that again is okay. When we experiment in these ways, we learn more about ourselves. And there's something really vital to that inspiration and playfulness that can lighten up our whole beings. And this connects to that time of coming in the menstrual cycle from day 6 up until day 12, 13. And we're moving up towards ovulation, that beginning of a new cycle. And in the nervous system, we're moving more into an expansion now into the sympathetic. And this brings us into when it's well regulated, it brings us into connection, into joy, into wanting to explore with curiosity. It allows us to tap into trust and empathy. When our nervous system is not so well regulated, that might come out as wanting to fit in, or what's known as fawning or camouflaging, like editing oneself to fit into wherever we are or whoever we're speaking to, like wanting to change like a chameleon. It also could be hyper socializing. So like coming into spring and like spring, getting very excited about everything and like running around. Woo! And it could also be people pleasing. Some of these are so familiar, right? Yeah. And I really don't want any of you to give yourselves a hard time about this, because collectively we've got to stop doing that. Things like people pleasing, camouflaging, they've been survival techniques that we might have been using for a long, long time. And not just us, but all those generations, that matriarchal line behind us of like, this is what was needed for survival and for being okay in the world. And we also have those hormones, the estrogen that brings us into connection and helps us fit in with the tribe and to care about fitting in. The archetype of spring is the maiden. So that life stage would be the sort of teenager to young woman. I also like to put it on to perhaps when we might get a new job or a new relationship. And I will also connect it to what is known as the second spring, which is the time post-menopausal. Ideally, when we've taken rest and had that time to nurture ourselves, we can go back into this second spring afterwards. So the hormones, estrogen, testosterone, are rising. When we are during our bleed, those hormones are at their lowest. So estrogen, testosterone are rising, the libido is rising, and with that, oxytocin and serotonin. So really exploring in every sense, all the senses coming out. And the ability to communicate goes up. Have you experienced that when you've tried to, sometimes, like I know for myself, when I try and articulate, there's certain points when I can't do it. And then other times it flows more. Yeah, and I'm post-menopausal, so I don't have the cycle like I used to, but I notice that it's still going up and down because my energy is going up and down. And also we have bodies, like even like being in, like for myself in my 50s, I've had decades of cycling internally. So those rhythms will still be within me. Now, I can't say for sure scientifically how that works, but that makes sense, that if something's been happening repetitively over a long time, they will still be a trace there. And that's like one of the things that we explore embodiment, is to uncover our patterns and work with them. And some of those patterns, you know, is actually to realize that we had those patterns in the first place, realizing that we are cyclical beings. So having a moment to contemplate that spring energy. It might be that you feel it right now, and it might not be. So if you take yourself back in your mind to a time of a new start, the new beginning of something, or it could be your teenage years, of that fizzy energy, but not everyone's experience of being a teenager is like that. But sometimes when I see teen girls all together and they're like laughing and shrieking and having a great time all together, and that energy is really rising. It's creative, it's starting to move out into the world, and it really requires a holding. It's a beautiful time, springtime. It's where we create our new ideas. It's the budding creativity. So often it can be bypassed. Sometimes we could experience it with a new job. And before we move out of this, for any of you who couldn't quite maybe get an idea for it, because one of the things about Embodied Toolkit is that it's really useful to practice them over and over again. It's a beautiful system, and it's quite a refined system. So maybe the first time we explore a pose, it could feel quite clunky, like I don't really get that. So I really recommend you to come back and try it. I was very allergic to Joker pose when I first learned it, because I found being playful really, really hard. But through practicing it, I really enjoy it now. So for something else, a different way of exploring spring, which can, if we try it in different ways, that can allow us to explore the postures, the Embodied Toolkit postures a little bit more. It might be a sort of a side way into going, oh, maybe I can get this a little bit more. And that, you know, we are non-linear beings, so it makes sense to me to explore this. So I'm going to invite you to come up to standing and to do some walking. So one of my favorite ways of exploring things, and this is one of the things that I learned from Mark, bless him, is exploring a concept through plain old walking. So walking with spring-like. So how would that be? So for each one of you, it will be different, but maybe it's like you're walking and almost imagining that you've got little springs in your feet. And walking around your room and giving yourself a chance to feel this upward energy. And it might be like a little fluttering through, spring-like. It feels quite airy, very. My Labrador puppy is so spring-like. It's almost like he's got springs in his legs. He's constantly bouncing. What's it like to explore spring? And if you are feeling quite spring-like and summery anyway, it will be easier. If you're feeling more, if you're more in winter and autumn, it will be harder. It won't be so apparent. So with these practices that we're doing Embodied Toolkit, and we're encasing it with the seasons, it's like that's when you do these postures, and it's like one day you'll be like, yeah, inspiration, love it, and then another day you'll be like, oh, nah. So it's not just you or the pose. There's so much else going around. So just really stay curious about the ebb and your own internal ebb and flow. So I'm going to give you a few moments to just take a while to, if you want to write any notes down. Noticing what you're left with. How do you use the gifts of spring? What do you want to bring out into the world? How might you cultivate spring? Oh, it might be that you've got full access to it. Sometimes if I'm in spring, if a person can access spring a lot, it might be that they get a little bit stuck there. But they're like, yeah, loads of ideas. Oh, great. Woo! But not moving through, which you'll get when we go through the other seasons. And generally what I find is the season that I want to get out of as quick as possible is probably the one that is quite useful for me to stay in. So can we bring a sense of kindness to ourselves? It's okay. And curiosity, a good dose of curiosity of like, how does this land with me? How does this land with me? And you know, I'm referring to quite a few different things, like the archetypes. And the archetypes can be really, really useful, but for some people it doesn't do it for them. Like if I say spring equals maiden, and some of you might be like, yeah, I totally get that, and others be like, no. And that's okay. And I was also thinking about the moon cycles with these. So with winter, it's the new moon, the dark moon. And then as we come into spring, it is the waxing moon starting to increase. And we come into more of a yang energy. But again, these are loose maps to hold, not to live your life by. Just to explore. And I notice as a facilitator, right, the season that I tend to zip through is the one that I probably struggle with the most. So we're going to move from spring, one last flutter, one last springtime flutter before we move into summer. So summer, come up to standing if you can. If not, you can do it in your seat. And we're going to go into a classic embodied toolkit pose of being seen. So feet are wide, toes pointing out and the arms are coming out. Summer, full activity, full out there. And as you find yourself in this pose, noting what's it like? Is this like, yeah, this feels great, I love it? Or is this like, oh God, no, get me out? And at any point you can come out and come back, connect to yourself. You could have one hand on your heart, one hand on your belly, or your pelvis, or both like that. Just coming back to yourself and then trying it again. So being out there at pretty much, I would say probably all of us at some point have to be out here. Yeah. And this connects to the archetype of the mother and of late 20s to early 40s, out there in the world doing stuff, giving to lots of different things. Yeah. And for some of you, you might find that you just get stuck here. Yeah, a perpetual summer. I'm in perpetual summer. I've got to deliver. I've got to sort the kids out. I've got to sort the partner out. I've got to sort my parents out, the dog, everything, whatever your version is. So at any point, you have full permission to come back into yourself while we explore summer in a way that doesn't disrupt our nervous systems, because we don't want to do that. We have too much of that anyway. So this idea of being seen, taking up space. Can we do taking up space in a way that doesn't dysregulate ourselves? So the way that I think about that is like, it's like a compromise. I'm coming from here and inward, connecting back to myself, giving myself to settle, center. So if like, for example, doing classic centering, ABC centering, awareness, balance, core relaxation, so relaxing the belly, relaxing the tongue, breathing, connecting back, and then from here, coming back into maybe not the full, remembering that it was Mark Walsh who created this. Yeah, so he will bring his own masculinity, his own personality to this as well, like we all do. So what's it like just to ease it up a bit, soften it? How can it be made sustainable? And maybe have a little walk around like this and thinking about how you show up to the world. And maybe thinking about, on one hand, there's the way you have to show up, yeah? Service, duty, and then also where would you like to show up a little bit more of? There's that, so if we're thinking like nervous system, sympathetic nervous system, when we are dysregulated in the sympathetic, we're in fight flight. I'm stuck, or I'm fighting, or I want to get the hell out, and I kind of get stuck. And that's what we want to, that's not a good place to be. So coming into something that's sustainable, but allowing ourselves to be out here in a way that doesn't take all our energy away, that doesn't pull us down. How can we do that? That tension between being out there, but also maintaining care. And in the menstrual cycle, it's going all the way up to ovulation and past. So day kind of 12, 13, up past 20. It's that the height of the sex hormones are up, and it's full on productivity. So another way that you can explore this is by moving with a reason to get from A to B, cutting through summer. And, you know, here in the UK, we've had almost like an extended summer. So our autumn is still being quite warm. And that in itself has a sort of reflects where life can take us as well. Or even during the day of, like, you know, if you think of the 4 seasons of it in the day, the winter is nighttime, spring is morning, summer is the middle of the day, and then we've got autumn evening moving in. You know, aren't we still stuck in summer when really we should be in autumn? And going back to this, the nervous system, the sympathetic, we need a healthy sympathetic nervous system. And that's something that I don't believe is really shown to us. We need it for alertness. We need it for motivation and for drive. And we need healthy aggression. That capacity to say what we need to say it directly, make boundaries, get what we want, say it how it is. Healthy aggression, where we need to clear off to those that need to clear off. Going back to the dysregulated sympathetic, one aspect of it where we can be addicted to intensity, to heightened sensation, to that busyness. Busy, 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 busy. I've got to be busy. That's my comfort zone. Ashtanga yoga, vinyasa flow, keep it going. Oh yes, that feels okay, familiar. It can also come out, as I said before, in fight or flight, and that can be come out as rage, frustration, irritation, arguing, also as panic or fear, anxiety and worry. And like when I say all of those, for me it's just like, it makes me think of perimenopause, all of those feelings that can arise. And a lot of what I'm talking about from exactly what you could say, premenstruum, perimenopause. Hello. Yeah, there is a likeness. It's like every time we go through premenstruum, we get a little teaspoon of perimenopause. A lot of this, what I'm talking about with the female nervous system, is from my studies that I've done with a woman called Kimberly Ann Johnson, who is a somatic experiencing facilitator and an educator. And she has done an amazing body of work about the female nervous system and about trauma resolution, about birth and sex and how it all interflows. So I do really recommend that you, if you're interested in this, if you want to go further with that, it's a game changer. And, you know, when we have a map upon which to put our reactions on, it can allow us to A, understand what's going on, and B, to kind of give ourselves a bit of empathy and kindness. Like, yeah, the rage, the anger, that's coming from somewhere. It's not just because I'm a bad person. I'm like the yoga teacher that screams, right? Or the whatever. Every emotion is there for a reason. So when we go, it's interesting when we think of the hormones, right? Because as we go up towards ovulation, estrogen peaks just before ovulation and then it drops. And then progesterone starts to rise. And that is the calming hormone. So that can be that's a way that we then start to come out of summer. When we have that heightened estrogen, we're at the sort of peak attraction. So it's where we can find many things attractive that we might not feel are attractive afterwards. Our social skills and our senses are at full tilt. And we have a high capacity and our confidence is up. And if any of you came to the other session that I did, it was all about this connected to confidence, because it's all interweaved together. So thinking about this summer, this way that also society can put us, can kind of block us into a perpetual summer. There's all those aspects of aging, of older women not being well represented in the media and on screens, of as soon as hitting a certain age being sold anti-aging. Like, I've got to get rid of all my wrinkles. I've got to deny the fact that I am of this age. And this is particular to female physiology. It's not the same. It doesn't happen the same with men. And we have different bodies. So we have bodies that have more fat than muscle. And as we go through perimenopause, we start to lose our collagen. It's a fact of life. So at some point, our summer starts to come to a close. But we can keep going and get the anti-aging stuff and put all those lenses, you know, those lenses, Instagram lenses, make myself sparkly. And, you know, we can do that for fun. We can put makeup on. We can, if our hair goes grey, we can flip and dye it. We can if we want, if we're doing it for ourselves, for an expression of our own creativity and our own sense of our own sexuality and sensuality, doing it for ourselves rather than doing it for whoever. So a few more moments just to contemplate summer. Where do you locate yourself with this season? It's being seen, taking up space. Production. Spinning lots of plates. The reality is summer comes to a close. And we're going to start moving into autumn. Here in the UK, there's still people walking around in flip-flops and shorts. You know, and part of the day is still really warm, but there is this transitioning. And some of us might be like, oh yeah, I can get my jumpers out and my woolly hat, and that's great. And then others might be, I want to wear my flip-flops. So thinking about what does it mean to transition out of summer. There's so many different levels to that. Because we're coming into autumn. The premenstruum, the perimenopause. And the archetype of the enchantress, the wild woman. And the first pose that I always go to with autumn, with Embodied Toolkit, is no. So if you would like to join me in standing up, and again, you can do this from sitting. So with a no pose, it's a yang pose. Feet roughly yoga mat distance. One step forward. Most of your weight is on the front leg. Yeah, so the side that your front leg is on, that hand comes up and the hand is in front of the heart. And the other hand, a loose fist, and it pulls back. I'll just show you from that inside. No. So this is no, yeah, because when we go from summer to autumn, this is what is the first thing that we need to start thinking about. No, I've got to start saying no. No, I can't do that. No, I can't do that, because I've got to start turning inward. And the only way that I can start turning inward is by letting go of some stuff. And we will come to letting go, and we will come to care and all the others. But the first thing is no. No. Ooh. Big one. If you find yourself going into a bit of overwhelm or a bit of fight or flight, you might be coming forward like this, or you might be retreating like, no, I don't want to say no. It's really difficult. Again, come back, connect to yourself, soften, connect to your feet on the ground, bit of centering, soft belly, loose tongue. Also coming from a place of love. I found this toolkit pose so useful when I first discovered it with parenting and setting boundaries to my daughter. So because before I'd be going into either a fight, no, or a freeze, like, get me out of here. And it helped me connect back to my heart, to why I was setting the boundary. Why did I need to say no? For her and for me. So coming from that place of real connection to why I'm setting a boundary. No. And with these postures, you can always come out, have a little shake, and then come back in. Setting a boundary. The first thing we need is to say no. And then from here, coming into care pose. So I've got my hands around. And in this space is what is mine. This is what I need to take care of. Outside is what I don't need to take care of. So this process of like, what is in my remit and what is not? Mine, yours, not mine. Yeah, not mine. Because the thing is, what can happen is that if I don't say no and I don't set a boundary, it's like this. It's like, it's all murky. It's going in, it's going out. And it either is like that, whoa, or it gets so tight and forced. And when we say no and figure out what is in and what is out, we can come into a place of self-care a bit more, self-love. So one hand under the armpit, one hand on the arm. And coming into self-care. And the beauty of these poses is that you can alternate. So it might be that actually I need a bit of this first before I come into know. Or I've got to like think, what do I have to take care of, and what can I let go of? And then I can say no. So you can mix it up, and it's almost like you are coaching yourself. So just coming back to that self-love, self-care. And your head can move down. And see what it's like to stay here. Give yourself that chance to really sense into it. A little bit like rest, this self-care, self-love can take a bit of time to come into it. And as I said earlier, this time is connected to the premenstruum and perimenopause. And perimenopause is a time where it's a time to start to say no to things and to let go, and it is one big life edit. And what's happening with the hormones in the menstrual cycle is that estrogen and testosterone are low. And throughout this time, the progesterone rises and then starts to fall. And progesterone is the calming, known as the calming hormone, but for some it can create anxiety. So, you know, as much as we can explore hormones, there's always so many different things going on. It's a bit like perimenopause symptoms and what might be helpful. There is not one solution that works for everyone, because there's always a difference. In an ideal world, the progesterone calms. With the nervous system, we're in parasympathetic, rest and digest, slow and fluid. When it's regulated. When the nervous system is dysregulated, that will be freeze. It could be freeze, it could be collapse. It could be procrastinating, or apathy, confusion, forgetfulness, overwhelm, disorientation. That leaves me thinking of, like, how much is that a dysregulated nervous system? All of those, because that are all the symptoms that people put onto the premenstrual phase of the menstrual cycle, or perimenopause. So with all this great big list of symptoms for perimenopause, is it our symptoms, or is it the symptoms of living as a cyclical woman in a modern patriarchal, linear, perpetual summer world? Who knows? But it's something to think about. So much of these things are put onto us like it's our problem. I'm you know, procrastinating. I'm, you know, forgetful, overwhelmed. There is always a reason. Part of it will be internal, but, you know, we react to our external world. So when exploring embodiment, I do believe that there's so much to be said for exploring the feminine lens of our cyclical nature, the rise and falls of our hormones, and how our nervous system interacts with the world, which can lead to a different relationship with our embodiment and with ourselves and the world. When we are in autumn and we can really honor this season of autumn, when we can set the boundaries, say no, step out of people pleasing, and start to really retreat, that means that we can tap into that intuition, the wisdom. It's a time when we have this intuition, which can also be translated as a very fine bullshit detector. Yeah, it's like, nah, not having that. Of like what I can say, yeah, okay. In spring, summer, in autumn, no. So it's a natural time for discernment and self-compassion. Coming home to ourselves. So have a moment to think about how is your autumn? How do you express your autumn internally, externally? How could you give autumn the space that it deserves? So that it can be a place of intuition and great wisdom. So it's not constantly in reactivity, of feeling sidelined or not belonging, irritated, pissed off with the whole world. Exploring these seasons and bringing them in as a practice, a daily, weekly practice, can potentially get us out of blaming and shaming ourselves and move us towards exploration, empathy, self-compassion and empathy. And like, where does this come? Where is this? What is this telling me? What is the rage telling me? What is the collapse telling me? Because we are sensitive, cyclical beings. We were never meant to be doing the same thing every day over and over again. What would it look like if those internal seasons could be really if one could become really intimate with them and to live from that. Because the whole thing is like, if I can honor each season, each one is going to be a more full, functional season. If I give myself the rest in winter, I can get that surge in summer, in spring, moving to summer. If I can have that expression of summer, but know when to start railing it into autumn and be with autumn, then the rest, the capacity to get good rest in winter will be much more likely. So I'm going to bring this practice to a close. So just coming back to yourself, where your feet make the ground, however you're seated. And just noticing what you're left with. And before we go into, we'll have some time for Q&As, but I'd love to invite you to put in the chat, what are you left with, or what's your takeaway from this? What surprised you, or what might you want to have a bit more of or a bit less of? So Monica says, I would love to have less of this anxiety of doing. Chelsea, I love using care pose to meditate on what is mine and then practicing the no pose to what is not mine. Yeah. Monica, thank you. I have a deep feeling of love, almost tearful. Mm. How does this, so there's some, how does this relate to uterine fibroids? So there's other specific questions coming in, and I think with something like that, that's a very individual thing. And I wouldn't be able to answer it like that. Because there's so many different layers to this. The beauty of the full seasons practice is, regardless of what's going on, what age you are, what stage of life, what thing is going on with your body, you can kind of just honor where you are in that moment. And again, I think someone asked about early menopause in when someone comes into menopause early in their 30s, and it doesn't fit the picture. It doesn't fit the way that we might think it does. And so again, that's the brilliant thing about the full seasons, is using them as a way just to connect into the here and now, which is relevant for you. Yeah, because you are the best person to know what is going on for you. The information is within you, rather than someone telling you. You know, we all need guidance. Yeah, we all, and support and holding each other's backs, supporting each other, definitely. And like when I work with women around this thing, it will be very much I accompany the individual and we work out what's going on. And it's like the menstrual cycle, you know, it's sort of like, yes, it's between 26 or 28 days, and it's and it's not, you know, there's so many different variations. It's constantly changing, you know, like when a girl would start to menstruate, it used to be kind of age 8, and now it's gone up to, I think it's the average is age 13. Or no, sorry, it used to be age 13, and now it's gone down to about 8 or 9. So things are constantly changing for for things internal and external. And there is no such real defined thing as a regular cycle, because there's so much scope. I think it's between 26 to 35 days. So is there any questions? Helen, have you seen any?
No, I haven't. Mostly it's thanks to you. And there's one comment here, a precious 90 minutes. And I think I echo that, but I think everybody echoes that. That's the flavour of what's coming through in the comments. So thank you. Just a reminder that the recording is a bonus session in Embodied Toolkit. And if you're not part of Embodied Toolkit, you can buy the recording. And there's a couple of other bits in with that. And I do keep adding it to the chat, but it disappears. It moves up. And I've added Jane's contact there as well, which I'll do again. Thank you so much, Jane. That's wonderful.
My pleasure. And thank you all for coming, and thank you for participating and putting your messages. I will go through the chat afterwards, because it's really interesting for me to see how it was for you. And if you want to work in this way, do get in touch. And all of you, just, you know, explore.
Well, as we're coming to the end, perhaps we could unmute everybody and people could say thank you and goodbye.
Thank you so much. It was great.
Thank you so much.
Really
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jane.
Thanks, everyone.
Namaste.